Doing well.
Yep.
It's been warmer outside, so been able to
Yeah.
open some windows in the house a little bit. Not
We,
completely, but like cracked some and started getting some outside air in. It's like tomorrow. It's supposed to be like 70 degrees here,
oh wow.
which
Okay.
is insane for like
Yeah.
this early in March. 70
Yeah.
degrees is crazy.
Because I was gonna say, what's warmer in Minnesota, but 70 is insane for this time of year. I would think, right?
Yeah, well, and it was like mid 50s today. So
Yeah.
like I just went out in a flannel shirt, just like not lined or anything, just a regular flannal shirt, and ran to the
Yeah.
store, and it was fine.
Yeah,
Well,
just the end of the world. No
yeah,
big deal.
just global warming's a hoax. We're just getting hot for no reason.
Yeah. Well, but it was a cold winter. We had a cold winter in New York, so of course it can't be global warming.
Well, one thing is not
Yeah,
any.
no, I know. Yeah, it's yeah. All right, we'll stay out of that lane before we dive. We did good last week, so we'll
We
try
did
to
good,
keep it
yeah.
up. All right. Well, the weather here's been pretty. It's been nice the last couple of days. Like we actually had a decent day. Like I walked my dog in a t-shirt, so I guess that's a good thing. Just
But
hoping
it's
it
one of those
stays.
things where like it happens here every year too, right? The first
Yeah,
time it gets back over 40, we're all like people are out in shorts and everything. It's
yeah,
like, oh, well, it's so nice outside, and it's like, no, it's just relative. It
yeah,
was, a couple of weeks ago it was 10 below, so
yeah.
50 degrees is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, Cynic, since you're spending your time underground, do you prefer when the climate outside is warmer or cooler? Like, how does the weather affect your job?
Well, cold doesn't really affect me as much as warmth, so
Yeah.
it can be as cold as it wants. I mean, and the nice
Yeah.
part about it is you can always dress up more.
Yeah.
When it gets warm, there's nothing you can do about it. You're just swimming in it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more uncomfortable in the summer.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, well, so let's get into. I'm going to talk a little bit. Got it's a little bit of news, not a ton that I could dredge up this week, and we'll talk a little bit of Daredevil because I finally got caught up on it, and or not caught up, but I got the first two episodes in, and it's definitely good. So I definitely want to talk to you guys about it. But the first thing, so read today. I guess it's a new documentary titled "Stan Lee: The Final Chapter," which apparently uncovers some abuse and mistreatment that he dealt with during his later years. It's by his former assistant, John Bolerjack. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he's got a project through Kickstarter. And he's just saying, I guess his claim is that Lee was the subject of manipulation and betrayal by people, and the documentary is set to kind of showcase the evidence and interview people to show how the last few years of his life was, and it's kind of sad. I saw a video popped up with him kind of at a convention, definitely in the later years of his life, kind of there with people kind of telling him where to go and what to do, and him expressing kind of exacerbation, and it's kind of rough because a guy who's so beloved, it's a rough way to spend your last few years if that's not something you wanted to do.
Yeah, there seems to be no dignity for anybody at the end of your life,
Yeah.
no matter how famous you were.
Yeah.
You look at the Gene Hackman situation. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you go missing for the better part of 2 weeks and nobody realize
Yeah.
it? You and your wife both. So the end of the life stuff is harsh. I do remember, I believe Kevin Smith alluding to some stuff, some shenanigans going on, and there were some stories about
Yeah.
potential agents and stuff like attaching themselves to his estate, and so yeah, the end of his life was a bit of a mess, from what I
Yeah.
recall.
It's got to be bad. I mean, it's like everybody's trying to make an extra dollar out of him, right? Same thing with everything. Especially people like Stan Lee, who
Yeah.
I'm sure he wasn't doing terribly, but like he was a comic book guy, like, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he made some money being part of Marvel and everything else. And some people probably did some things to make him whole,
Yeah.
but he probably wasn't like what would be like Hollywood rich.
Mhm.
I don't think he had that kind of money.
I mean, they were still pushing him out in conventions up until a year or two before he died.
Yeah, because
I
he probably
remember,
needed the money.
yeah, I remember him being at Rhode Island Comic Con, a few years before he died, and they were getting an exorbitant amount of money to just meet him and take pictures with him and get an autograph. And like, I remember somebody saying like they were basically like, don't come anywhere near him and don't breathe on him. So it was like getting an autograph from a living relic.
Yeah, yeah, that's rough. It's like he was in some ways a great showman, and if he was struggling, he never showed that, because I think anytime you did see him in public, the public presenting face was always excited to be there, and the showman and the person who wanted the attention. But that's also like he was well into his 90s, and yeah, if all it takes is a couple people who want to take advantage of that, and it's rough if that's not what he wanted. But we'll see again, and hopefully if there was mistreatment, that those people will be will face whatever punishments, if there were any crimes that did occur. I think my wife's regret was like, not there was one year at Comic-Con where he was there and she wanted to get a photo, and we didn't, and it was like, he's here every year. Granted, you don't say that about somebody in the mid-90s, but that was like the last year he was at New York Comic-Con. So yeah, she almost once a year at least, at some point, if Stan Lee comes up, she gets on me about not letting her get the Stan Lee photo that she wanted. So is what it is. So Cynic, you what were your thoughts on the light heavyweight king Alex Pereira lost his heavyweight title this weekend to Magomed Ankalaev? It's hard to pronounce his name. Yeah, but decision. Did you watch the fight? What were your thoughts on the decision?
I did, and it didn't look like Pereira wanted to be there from go.
Yeah,
I mean, he's won fights because of the low leg kicks before, but he did a lot more than that to win the fights. Like that would open the door to other things where it felt like he didn't want to throw. It felt like he didn't want to be there. He looked disinterested. And this was foretold when he made the jump from 205 that, hey, you're going to run into guys bigger, the same size, if not bigger than you. And this guy is, and this guy at least at that night was faster than he was.
Yeah.
So he didn't really have an answer. He couldn't change up the game to meet what was in front of him. So, maybe he goes back, maybe he retools. He's not the youngest fighter in the world, and maybe, but if he's going to do the same things, I don't see a path to victory against this guy. So, but I want to say it was Daniel Cormier warned him of that when he went to make his move, and Pereira got really upset at him about it. It was one of the pundits, but either DC or
I think it was DC.
And he made that warning, and this particular fight, it turned out to be true.
Yeah. I guess that's what happens with any fighters. Like when they reach that level, there's a part of like, maybe complacency, they believe in their own hype. Maybe they feel like they don't have to train as hard. And granted, like he's been training, he's been doing kickboxing, boxing. So he's been fighting for a long, long time, and he was dominant in the UFC, but it didn't seem like he really, like something was missing. And maybe it's, maybe it's just the limelight and not being able to get really full training camps. Maybe it's age, but it definitely did not seem like he was, he just seemed like a step slow and just not quite there. Did you watch any of that fight, Ig?
No, it's, I can't pronounce half the guys' names. I don't know a lot of the things going on.
Yeah.
Like probably been 5 years since I watched UFC. It's just, it's not that I'm not interested. It's just, they have so many events. It's like trying to keep track of everything is because like I'm a big sports fan. So like, baseball's starting. So I've been reading and watching some of that stuff, the football with their free agencies opening up soon, so people are starting to get signed all over the place and everything ahead of that, and traded, and things are happening. So like there's only so much bandwidth I have in my life for sports, and Joe's big on UFC, so if I really want to know something, I ask him.
Yeah. Well, so quick side note for both you guys with the baseball season starting up. Let's get your pre-spring training predictions. Who's gonna make it out of the AL and the what's the World Series gonna be? Ig, I'll ask you first.
And whoever actually doesn't get injured all over the place.
Yeah. All right, Cynic, what about you?
Yeah, it doesn't look great for the Yankees at this point. I think they're still a playoff team, but I don't think they're a World Series team. So I'm not really sure who's going to make it out of the AL. I think it's a bit of a toss-up. I mean, the Astros have retooled, so they're a distinct possibility. I'm not sure what that clicking noise is, but um, yeah, I think it's quite possible that it's the Astros.
The clicking noise is something on Ryan's side.
Yeah, it's on my end. It was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I guess quick question. Not to dive too much into baseball. What were your thoughts on the Soto deal? We didn't talk about that. We haven't podcast since that happened. But did the Mets make a huge mistake, or what do you think?
Listen,
did the Yankees mess up?
No, he wasn't going to sign with the Yankees regardless. Soto is an undeniable talent. Is he a $765 million undeniable talent? I don't know. The Dodgers made that Ohtani deal because they knew they were going to make that money back, and they've made a good portion of it back already just by the attention that's led to from Japan. When I went out to see the Dodgers at the end of the season, I'd say about 70% of the stadium was Asian. So there's a huge draw there, and there's a huge influx of money from Asia, where it's to the point where even companies were buying advertisement for other teams when they were the Dodgers were out of town. So it's a big market. I don't know if the Mets make that money back, but I don't know if they need to. Cohen is so rich that he could probably take a bit of a bath, and maybe it builds a different legacy for the team and a different mindset. But at the same time, then they turned around and spent no money the rest of the offseason. A bunch of medium to low end pitchers, and that was about it. And bringing back lowballing Alonso, who's been one of your most loyal players, and bringing him back on a much lesser contract that they offered him originally. Which good business, but bad loyalty on the Mets' part.
Yeah, well, what year is Alonso in now? Because he's been in the league a hot minute. Like, he's not the player he was.
Well, he's not the player that he valued himself at, but he's still a quality player. Yeah, I believe his swing is starting to slow down, and I don't believe that he was worth what he was asking for. I mean, they offered him, I believe, $150 million over 4 or 5 years in the middle of last season, which he naively turned it down and ended up signing for like 30 or 40 million. So
well, now, do you think the contracts are getting insane?
Yes.
Is this bad for baseball or bad for sports in general? What do you
it absolutely is, because now the Dodgers owe Ohtani more money in deferment than I believe 7 teams are actually worth. Think about that. One player is owed more money than you could buy the teams that with the money he's owed. So it's not great. I don't think Soto should have got that type of money. I think he was more in the $500 million range, but he is a generational talent. He is a great hitter. He's a terrible fucking fielder. But he is a great personality to have. And if you're starting a team, you could do a lot worse than Juan Soto.
Well, the problem you run into, I think, and you hit it right on the head, is that, these big market teams that are like California and New York teams have so much more money available to them that the smaller market teams just can't compete. And that's why the NFL does so much better, is that there's parity, because there's a salary cap and everybody spends right up to the cap.
We yell about parity, but it seems to be the Chiefs always in the Super Bowl.
And I think that's purely just by coaching. They're a better coach team. Andy Reid is that good of a coach, because he's had some of the same tools, but it's been a different team every year. He's had, you've had Pat Mahomes, but he's had different linemen. He's had different receivers. I mean, Tyreek Hill left after one of the Super Bowls. He's still able to get touchdown passes. He's had different defensive stars. You got to make the right decisions. And
that was an insane story with Tyreek Hill at the end of the season, saying he doesn't want to be on the Dolphins anymore because they're not winning, but he left for the money. You can't have both. You can't leave for the giant contract, obnoxiously paid, and then expect to be on a winning team. It's not the way it works with the salary cap.
It's always kind of ridiculous when you get that. Like trying to have your cake and eat it too.
And for a while it was the Patriots the same way, but you can say that there was no parity, because they lost some of those Super Bowls and they had other things happen. So
fair enough.
Well, So we'll get into, so one other thing, it's not really a news story, but I did want to ask you guys your thoughts with the DCU kind of coming to coming together. We had Creature Commandos. I don't know if you guys watched that yet, but it was really good. But we've got Superman obviously is coming out. We have Supergirl, Clayface, Peacemaker season 2, Batman the Brave and the Bold. So with all this stuff coming up, are you excited about the direction that DC's taking? You think they've got it? And then what project are you most excited about? Let's say outside of Superman. Ig, I'll start with you.
Well, I think they're going to run into some of the things that the MCU's been doing lately, where they're hitting some characters and stuff that are deep enough in that nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right? So Clayface, who cares? It's like you need to spend, and the only reason the MCU is getting away with it is because they spent enough time building up love from the fan base with big properties, or at least well-made properties. Because it was a big push to try and run Guardians of the Galaxy, but because of how well it was made, it worked out for them. So it's a problem that it better be real good. And the thing is, I think what Clayface is going to be a TV show, isn't it? It's not going to be.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would assume that it's going to be something like that. Probably go to HBO Max or something like that, because that's where DC is kind of living some of their life. So it turns into, you're doing some other Batman things, but some of it's purely animated and everything. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you need to spread around a little bit. But I think if you run too thin too early, you put so much out there, and if any of it's not good, it's going to kill the things that might be good.
Yeah. What do you think about? What are your thoughts, Nick?
It's a wash for me. I mean, I'm excited about Superman, obviously, because I love James Gunn, but then we're following up with Supergirl, which is kind of a redundancy. Different story, but same powers. It's essentially the same thing, just different genders. I mean, I don't think we need a Clayface thing, but I was the same person that said we don't need a Penguin thing, and I ended up, I can't shut up about the Penguin.
Yeah.
So I'll watch it, and I'll kind of judge it and Monday morning quarterback it from there. But the problem is that I'm just not as excited about the DCU as I am the MCU. There's nobody. They made me love Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if they're ever going to make me love Green Lantern. And it had nothing to do with the failed movie to begin with. It was just the characters just never really resonate. To me, it's Batman, and then it's way down everybody else. I've always loved Batman. Batman's been 1A with Spider-Man my whole life, but everybody else, I've never really truly cared about him. I mean, I loved Aquaman, but I really think that they should have took a beat and maybe waited a couple years before we started to re-release these characters that have had several restarts to begin with.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think, but I guess like with the MCU, I think the problem is they're kind of playing catch up and trying to. It's like you have the MCU to compete with, and it's clear that they're trying to, and it might be a little too much too soon. I see your point, Ig, that some of these projects, I'm excited about Clayface because it's Alan Tudyk and he's a great character actor, and you've got a character that is, there's a lot you can do with it, but not everybody's super excited about that. And if you're trying to build, something to compete with the MCU, it's an odd choice, to be one of your lead projects. But at the same time, we've got James Gunn at the helm, and he's been knocking it out the park lately, right? Obviously Guardians, Peacemaker, love Creature Commandos, Superman's looking good. So maybe he's the right guy for this. And so I'm cautiously optimistic. But I think they got a lot riding on Superman. If that movie's not good, then we might not have a DCU for much longer.
Yeah, they might just cancel everything if it doesn't really hit hard.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that they're going to get external pressure from Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers is in a bit of financial trouble, and these movies are probably the only thing saving it.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I think hopefully they're able to figure their stuff out, because I think we're all fans of these properties and want to see them succeed. And I don't want to see how crazy would it be if Batman is sold to Disney, or DC is sold to Disney, or they start selling individual property? That would be insane, and we don't want that. So Although, maybe, who knows? Maybe they do some good work with it.
Disney's got enough. They
Yeah.
don't need the extra thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So before we get to Daredevil, one other thing. We'll do one round of what we're watching. So Cynic, let's start. Anything interesting that you've been watching in the last week?
Well, I mean, I did mention that Survivor and Gold Rush have been back, and they've been fantastic. But I'm not going to give you what I'm watching. I'm going to give you what I'm going to be watching, which I completely spaced on last week when we were talking about upcoming properties.
Yeah.
And we're getting season 3 of the Daryl Dixon show, which I wasn't blown away by the first season, but they included Carol in the second, and just the setting alone, which was France, was fantastic and makes it more than a watchable program, even though Daryl Dixon had Norman Reedus has grown past the bonds of being, basically a straw actor with very limited range and delivery. I still love the character. I love The Walking Dead. I'm excited that we are moving towards an Avengers-like team up after the Rick and Michonne show, which I absolutely loved, and we're getting Dead City back, which is the Negan and Maggie property, shortly too. So both of them are on their way back. I would suggest picking them up and watching them on the AMC app because I think they're both very watchable shows.
All right, maybe I'll add that. Now, how does he get to Paris?
Well, I don't want to give anything away.
Okay, all right.
Because that was my question too. Because they were like, they treated it as if they weren't going to tell us, and the fans were not happy about that. So it is worked into the storyline.
Yeah,
it's still unbelievable, and even more unbelievable is somehow Carol finds her way from Maine over to France in a world where gas is going bad and there's no navigational systems.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Egg, how about you? What have you been watching?
I started watching House of David on Amazon Prime. It's a biblical story. I'm not a big Bible thumper. I'm really not. But sometimes when they put some things together, I get kind of interested in what they're doing, and I want to see how they're going to tell the story. Because really, the Bible's a pretty fantastic story as long as you're not trying to live your life like by the absolute word of it. So I looked at the beginning of it. It's been pretty good, so that's what I started with, and obviously they're not going to be just try to be straight historical with how they make it. They're going to make it exciting to watch because biblical stories, while they're really good, if you imagine how they can be and how it could be fantastic, that's where the real magic happens. And they're doing the right thing with that show so far. Like the first episode was really good, so that's what I started with this week. Because I was trying to find something new because I knew you guys were going to ask, "What are we watching?" I gotta have something.
Yeah. So mine is I watched. We binged this weekend. Paradise, which is on Hulu, stars Sterling K. Brown, James Marsden. It's a really good show, really enjoyable, easy watch. It's hard. I don't want to give much away, but basically, Sterling K. Brown's character, Xavier, is a Secret Service agent to James Marsden, who's the president. They're both great. I think they have great chemistry in it. Basically, there's kind of an apocalyptic event, and there are survivors in kind of a basically like a bunker built out of a mountain in Colorado. It's really, really well done. There's a mystery that kind of goes on throughout, some great performances in it. And you speed through it because it kind of moves really fast. So, highly recommended if you haven't watched it yet, that you check that out. All right. So you guys haven't seen it, right?
No, not yet.
No, yep, yeah, definitely recommend it if you're looking for something to binge. Definitely enjoyable.
Yeah, the cast sounds fantastic. You can't go wrong with Sterling K. Brown. We were just before we got on here, we were rewatching Black Panther.
Okay, yeah.
Even though he's just got a small part in it, he's fine.
He's good.
He nails it in everything he does.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys who really does, and he's great in this. And I really, like I said, James Marsden's great as a president, and they have great chemistry. Like when they are together, it's just that you believe that they have this kind of this relationship that kind of goes through kind of peaks and valleys. And yeah, again, really well done. There's one episode, every once in a while you get that one episode of a show, whether it's like Blackwater or like the third episode in The Last of Us. You get that, like, it's like this is one of the great episodes of TV, and this has that as well. I think it's episode 7.
Or every episode of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, your favorite. No, but yeah, no, it's definitely it's one of those where even if you just watch it for episode 7, because it builds really well and does a good job. All right, so let's get into Daredevil. So I'm going to do a little different. We're going to talk about episodes 1 and 2. I'm going to give a quick recap of the episodes, and then I'm just going to ask some questions, and you guys can share your thoughts. So if you're listening, we're going full spoilers.
Oh yeah, you have to.
So yeah, there's no way around it. So like I would say, if you're a big fan of Daredevil, especially the first few seasons on Netflix, I would turn this off. Come back later once you've watched it, because some stuff happens that you don't want spoiled if you're a massive fan, or if you care about spoilers. And if you don't, then we're going to talk some spoilers. So basically, episode 1, it opens with Matt Murdock, Foggy Nelson, and Karen Page all together celebrating, and they're violently interrupted when Bullseye attacks, and it results in Foggy's death. Matt confronts Bullseye, throws him off a building, and then he just decides to abandon the Daredevil persona. And that's kind of the opening to this, to the show. A year later, we kind of follow up from that a year later, and Matt's now partners with District Attorney Kristen McDuffie, and Karen's moved to California. And Wilson Fisk has launched a campaign for mayor, wins the election, and then the episode concludes with a really cool and tense scene, which we'll talk about a little bit more, with Matt and Fisk exchanging their own warnings about each other, right? Like each one's kind of giving the other one the benefit of the doubt, but as the conversation builds, it's like as good as any fight scene. Like they're both like, "I'll be there if you get out of line." Episode 2, we see that Mayor Fisk is opposing masked vigilantes, so that's a big platform for him. And Matt is representing Hector Ayala, who intervenes in an assault and is revealed to us to be the White Tiger. Fisk is able to manipulate the police commissioner into getting control of the NYPD, and then Matt's investigation into the Hector Ayala case, which involves the death of a police officer, leads to the person that Ayala saved, and it ends with Matt beating the crap out of 2 corrupt officers, one of whom has a Punisher tattoo. And then we're not sure if he's dead, but we see Matt's kind of internal struggle, and maybe that he's going to have to take on the Daredevil persona again. So I guess, Cynic, I'll start with you. This show starts with the bang, right? Foggy Nelson is killed right off the bat. Do you think, and this is kind of, I guess, stepping back a bit, do you think that was a choice because we wanted to connect it to the original series, but we wanted to be its own thing? Is that why Foggy's killed? Karen is gone off to California. Or do you think there's more, there's going to be more of a connection to that, the Netflix version of this series?
Well, I do feel like we're going to get more Karen in the future. I don't think she's completely gone. I was torn on this one because I was happy to see them back together. It was reminiscent of the old show, and I was excited about it. But I have to admit that I hated every second of Foggy's screen time on the Netflix show. Other than when him and Matt were first getting started and the future was in front of them, the rest of it, like especially once he found out that he was Daredevil, I couldn't stand it. The wailing, the carrying on about it, the pouting, the just teenage angst of everything that was Foggy Nelson at the time. So it in one beat, it kind of I was okay with it, but in another, it did feel like it kind of something was taken from us that I couldn't put my finger on.
Yeah. Ig, do you think what do you think made him decide to retire the persona? Was it just that he realized he's better as just an attorney and not a vigilante? Do you think it was guilt? Do you think fear of getting caught? What do you think sparked his decision to just give up as being Daredevil?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think it would be hard for me to say fear because Daredevil always will be to me known as the man without fear. I mean, that was the tagline on a bunch of his comics, right? It's a Daredevil, the man without fear.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that fear's a good term for it, but I think maybe that he enjoyed nearly killing not Daredevil, Bullseye, but and I think that bloodlust type mentality might have woken something in him that he was like, I don't know that I want to like that. I don't know that I want to feel like that, because, and then also maybe some guilt, because like, even with all this power and even with all of this knowledge and even with everything that I couldn't save those closest to me, because I mean, he doesn't have many relationships of people that are close to him, right? It was just those two people basically. And most things are just that he lives a very secluded life. So anybody that he has in his life, if he can't keep them safe, then what's he doing it for?
Yeah.
So go be a lawyer, help those you can help, try and be good at it. But it's got to be one of those things that, imagine just like being solely responsible for the safety of anything, for a cat. And then somebody comes in and just like picks it up by the tail and bashes it against a wall. You're like, how many more cats are you going to go get then? It's going to be one of those things you're going to be scared to do that for the rest of your life. And that's a weird example to bring, but that's what I think, that it's a combination of he doesn't want to feel that bloodlust about things. And I think we see a little bit at the end of episode 2 that he almost felt good about beating the tar out of those cops. He had that quick moment of just like, I got it.
Just quickly, Ig, you're a little low.
Oh, okay.
But imagine, Ryan, okay, because the whole cast was behind the Save Daredevil movement when Netflix canceled it. It's been years now. How do you have this conversation with Eldon Henson? Oh, everybody's coming back.
Except you're going to be the catalyst for the whole season.
They started shooting the show, and then they're like, they step on the brakes. They're like, no, go get Karen and Foggy and bring them back in here. And oh, by the way, you're going to be back for exactly 5 minutes.
Well, so Siddiq, did you, going back to what Ig said, did you read the same? Because I didn't read the same into it. Did you read into it that he took some pleasure in beating the cops? Because I saw it as more just like frustration. It's boiled up, and that was a moment where it exploded. But did you see it as any joy? Yeah.
I think he put the persona away out of pure guilt. But I think in that moment, he realized that he's not going to be able to just be a lawyer. There's going to be times where he's going to have to rekindle the Daredevil persona.
Yeah. Well, then speaking of that, so there's a kind of joke that, Batman would be a lot more effective if Bruce Wayne just spent his money on fixing Gotham, rather than running around at night. Do you think Daredevil's more effective as just a lawyer and, trying to represent those who, can't represent themselves? Or do you think he needs to be out there, fighting crime?
A jump ahead to episode 3, Matt Murdock, the lawyer, it shows himself to be a pretty effective deterrent against police corruption. But I mean, it's the problem is he can't do it all as one or the other. You can't litigate as Daredevil, and you can't fight crime as Matt Murdock. So I think both are required. That's why he started to do it in the beginning anyway, because the law is limited in what it can do.
Yeah. So obviously the show introduces Kingpin or Wilson Fisk, and right away, he's mayor by the end of the first episode. It kind of felt a little weird because it's like, the one critique I might have had is the timing of that episode was all over the place. Cause like you get that point where he's running for mayor, but there's a whole, it's at worst. I mean, in our case, I guess we're getting a primary right in the over the course of the next few months, but it's still at least 8-10 months of, before when you decide to run for mayor and when you're elected. Did that part seem a little weird or a little rushed? The kind of Wilson Fisk deciding to become mayor, running for mayor, becoming mayor by the end of that episode?
Well, I think it's victim of the pacing of the Netflix show.
Yeah.
Because Netflix wanted a set amount of episodes, and Disney and Marvel had to produce those episodes.
Yeah.
So I think that they went with a much shorter run this time around, because I think we heard 17 to begin with in the season, and they compacted it to 9. So yeah, some of it is going to get lost in the cut.
Well, and how much time do we want to watch him going out and doing like stumping speeches and things like that? Like, it's one of those things where him being mayor might be integral to the story, right? So, like, let's get him in his seat, let's get him doing his thing so that he can start his anti-vigilante escapade and everything. And that means, I mean, and quite honestly, like, if you're going to be a vigilante, a masked vigilante, especially in this world, wouldn't Daredevil be the best choice anyway? Because you are a public facing person all day, and then you you tend to move around in the shadows, kind of like a Batman. You know, people know of you, but not many people actually see you. It's probably the best vigilante choice there is, rather than a big white outfit.
Yeah. Yeah. So now with Kingpin or Fisk, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think his agenda is? Do you think he really like? I think he believes in the anti-vigilante thing, right? But is it because he's anti-vigilante? Oh, it's so hard not to make political parallels right now, but I'm gonna be good. But do you think his anti-vigilante agenda is legitimately out of a cause? You know, he really believes in it and wants to do good for the city, or do you think there's an ulterior motive that will show itself eventually?
Well, wouldn't it be just based on his personal experience, a completely self-serving thing? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And because a fair amount of the police force and people that are affected by vigilantism are on his side with that, then you get a following. And, you know, some of those people are going to follow because, you know, hey, if the cops say this is bad, then it must be bad. And so they just kind of believe what they're told. Some people, like, if they get their news from only very specific sources, they're going to believe what they're told and everything. And that's the world that exists. So it's really good to put that in a way that some people are just going to kind of follow what they're being told, no matter what world you're imagining. That's the world that exists. Like, some people are just going to follow. So it's self-serving because obviously a vigilante like messed up his life. So why not? Like, let's make this part of my thing. And especially when you hear that people are against vigilantism, why not build a platform on it, you know, and you know, make New York what it once was, and let's get back to how we're supposed to be, and let the police do their job. And
well, Cynic, do you think so he manipulates the police commissioner in episode 2? Now, do you think that's just him using his political strategy, or again, do you think it's a sign of like he's got ulterior motives beyond just like stopping vigilantes?
Well, going back to your last question, the cops have had no luck with Kingpin, and if his life experience is beyond just the Daredevil show, we look. Echo shot him in the face. Spider-Man's always giving him a problem. You know, Daredevil's gotten him arrested a few times. So yeah, I'd be pretty fucking anti-vigilante too if I was him. Like, his experience has been would not recommend. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of an enhanced game of politics where he decides, well, I'm going to color outside the lines. And, oh, by the way, I know that you have a kid out of wedlock. And if you want to keep this quiet, then I guess you're staying on, you know, and you're, you know, part of a puppet regime where we're going to be able to manipulate you to do whatever we want because, you know, look, nobody wants to get divorced. And it's hard to go home and tell the wife, hey, by the way, I've got a kid that you don't know about. So, you know, kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. And, you know, he'll hang around and hopefully in the meantime, Fisk will get taken down.
Yeah. So now I've always one of the great things about the show has been his relationship with Vanessa and how they interact with each other. I think they both have, you know, great chemistry together. And what are your thoughts on like her influence and support over him, you know, throughout this season? Do you trust her? Do you think there's something else going on? Cynic, what do you think about it?
Well, they've already kind of in the next episode. Well, and I think believe in 2 as well. She did some things outside the relationship that he's probably a little upset about. I don't know. I like them working together. I'm always excited when a couple can either fight crime or do crime together. That's why it was so disappointing when Skylar White was on the fence and not supportive of Walter. That's why everybody just absolutely can't stand her. I kind of liked Vanessa and Kingpin being on the same team, but I understand that as that complex relationship grows, there's going to be, things that they don't always agree on.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's
not putting other penises inside you.
And it's not, she's not the queen pin, right?
Mhm.
But he is the kingpin. So it's, you need to, he's going to get to a point where like he's the one that's got the power. He's the mayor. He's the kingpin. He's got the knowledge. He's got the strength. He's got the power. And she's going to overstep some bounds somewhere is what I feel like is going to happen. Like you're right. Their chemistry is really, really good for what they're trying to do in this show. But I think that I don't know that she's going to make it through the end of the series, and I'm not sure she'll make it through the end of this season. Like something's going to happen where like she's going to leave one way or another.
Well, and the actress almost didn't make it back. I'm glad they did, because I think she's a needed cog in the in the machine. I don't think you can tell a Kingpin story at this point without Vanessa, at least not this version of the Kingpin, because she was so detrimental in the Netflix series. So I'm glad that she was able to join the cast and be a part of the story.
Yeah. So in episode 2, we have Nikki Torres, who is the White Tiger, right? The White Tiger, and Hector Ayala is the White Tiger, and he sees two men accosting a guy. They get into a fight in the subway. One of them falls into a train, killed. It turns out they're undercover cops. This incident happens while he's just himself, not as the vigilante. Daredevil eventually finds out he's a vigilante, and it's kind of like putting a mirror up to him. Do you think that was a little on the nose, Ig? That, it's like, okay, now Daredevil has to defend a vigilante, and he has to, kind of contend with his own acts as vigilante and rightness or wrongness of it. Do you feel like that was a little on the nose here? Was it okay for you?
It was okay for me, and especially because he's like, he's not the same kind of vigilante as Daredevil, because his power resides in his relic, his item that he didn't have. So he was just a man trying to do the right thing in a place where he saw some guy being bullied basically on a train platform. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't able to use his power. Like Daredevil's power is innate from an accident, right? He just can see, can hear, can see through like sonar, can know what's going on around him, and just is very well trained. So like his power never leaves. But the White Tiger, like if without his amulet, is just a guy, just a dude. Yeah. He might be in shape or whatever, but there's lots of people that are in shape. I think you're in shape, Ryan. I mean, so like if you stop somebody from beating someone up and like they get hurt in the process a little bit, like should you get, and especially if they don't identify themselves and all of a sudden it's a cop and like, well, you assaulted a cop. I'm like, well, he was plain clothes. He didn't say, hold on, I'm the police. We're dealing with something here. He didn't say anything. Like he was just beating up on a guy. And you heard him trying to get him off of the guy. And like, should you go to prison for that? Probably not. So it's one of those things that, yes, it's kind of on the nose if you really try and dig too deep into it. But it was one of those things where they were tuning him up inside the police station after he was arrested.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, the whole Judge Dredd situation, like if you're going to arrest them as well, then why are you still beating them up? Why are you still hurting them? What are you going to gain?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, I guess, for me, and it's not, I don't want to sound overly critical, but I felt like and maybe that changes because I've not seen episode 3, but I feel like you didn't need him to be a vigilante. Like that was a strong enough story by itself, right? Like, you just walk down, you see someone getting attacked, you help, you try to do the right thing and help, and something happens. Like, I thought that's a good enough story that I almost felt like like I said, like the vigilante part was almost a little bit on the nose for me, and I get it, because I think I see the story they're trying to tell, and then I guess this is a larger issue with the MCU. I think when these shows started on Netflix, it was kind of like, okay, you have the big superheroes in the MCU, and then this is going to be our street level heroes. But at this point, it's all one thing. And do you buy that like Cynic, do you buy that in this world there is this kind of delineation between like your Captain Americas and your Scarlet Witches and your Doctor Stranges and your Spider-Man and like Daredevil? And do people see them differently? Like, are people going to see the vigilantes any different from like the big superheroes? Are they the same thing? Like, do you buy that there's this like, yeah, in New York we or the US we revere Captain America. We made him legal, but we don't know. We don't like these little sweet level heroes.
Well, I mean, there's levels to every game, right?
Yeah.
But before I get into that diatribe, R.I.P. to the actor that did play Hector Ayala. His name was Camar Della Reyes, I believe, and he was sick while they were filming these episodes and passed away not too long after. So unfortunate, but it also makes the third episode much more bittersweet because he does really act his balls off in that episode. Really? So the betrayal and the lines he was given just hit home a little more, knowing that he knew that he was critically ill. And so that was deep. But I mean, well, to go back to your Matt Murdock defending vigilantes, in the comic book, he basically did a lot of that. Yeah. I mean, how was he introduced back into the MCU? He was defending Spider-Man. Yeah. So, I mean, there's in and outs, and I believe that it was integral to tell the story for him to take a look at himself and take a look at himself in that situation. So I kind of don't think it was too on the nose. I think it's an important part of the story. I think I lost your question though. What was the question?
That's a good question. Yeah. Hey, do you remember what my question was? No, just about the idea of vigilantes.
The levels of vigilante. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all based off of power, right? Yeah. That's why I worry when they're like, oh, well, we're going to put Daredevil in the Avengers. Well, he power-wise, they even portray him under Hawkeye as far as strength and all that stuff. So, I guess there are guys, breaking up, muggings and the Avengers saving the world. So they're rock stars and there's opening bands.
And you know what? To be fair, I was going to say like this maybe answer my own question is The Boys does a great job with that, right? Because you've got like the 7, and then you've got like the street level heroes, and then there was that amazing episode where there was the Daredevil like character, and I think
what happens if I?
So yeah, it's okay. All right, answer my
such a good show.
Answered my own question. Sad that it's going to be ending soon, but hopefully it ends on a high note. So now, do you feel like the tone of this? Do you feel like the tone of this season so far is any different from the Netflix series, or do you feel like they've done a good job of taking one and bringing this into the MCU proper?
I think they've done an amazing job bringing it over and keeping the tone very similar to what it was. Obviously, every season of anything is going to have a little difference in tone, right? It's still going to feel familiar. It's still going to feel like something that, was, but like, if you look at the seasons that were on Netflix, that they had a little different tone even between them. But the general feeling behind what's going on with the show is still there with this. They've done it right. They must have brought the same people to run it and everything, because visually it's the same, storytelling it's the same. I mean, it's a little different because the story's different, but the general feel, like, it feels like watching Daredevil. It feels just like it's a continuation of what was going on Netflix. So they're doing the right thing. And it's been great so far. Like, everything has been 8+, on everything going on so far.
Yeah, no. The show introduces a little element in that last episode of what looks like a Punisher tattoo, which is an interesting way of kind of bringing real life into it, because you do have a lot of people who take on the Punisher symbol for whatever their purposes are, and then even the kind of writers or writer of Punisher or creator of Punisher kind of saying, "Hey, that's not what I wanted out of it." But Cynic, how do you think they're going to play with this idea of the cops adopting the Punisher, and how do you think if and when the Punisher does show up in this show, how does he react to that, being somewhat of maybe a cult hero to these police officers?
Well, there is a Punisher storyline that deals with the very same thing. So I would imagine that they're going to loosely kind of follow that. And yeah, he's not going to be happy about it because they're not supposed to be him and he's not supposed to be them.
Yeah.
You know, the Punisher's not supposed to be upholding the law. I mean, they took a vow to maintain society, and I don't think it's going to play well, especially since they're not always doing things. You know, when Ayala stumbled upon those two cops, they weren't acting as cops; they were acting as bad guys with badges. So, I don't think it's going to be great for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, so
that can't end well when Frank shows up.
No. So, hey, give me your review, your rating, final thoughts and rating. First 2 episodes of this season of Daredevil.
Well, I think I'm happy it's back. You know, and you know, as far as MCU TV shows have gone, they've not been all that good so far. Most of them. I mean, there've been some moments and stuff that show up that are really entertaining to watch and everything, but overall, MCU TV shows have been pretty much a miss. So getting this back, where I loved every episode of the original Daredevil series, and the way they've started these first episodes, I'm just happy as pie that they're back, because they just are doing the right thing. They have the right feel. They put the right look. It just feels like the MCU should feel on a TV series. So, you know, hopefully they don't bring back too much Iron Fist, but that was the only part of those Netflix ones that I think was really not up to par. Mm-hmm. So I'm just super excited, and I think that they're gonna really end up with some really good things on this. And I hope they don't like have a mid-season stumble that like they just take some weird turn that makes it almost impossible to watch from that point. But I don't think they will. I think that even if they're just basing off of Daredevil stories that were in the books and everything, there's plenty of material to go on that's very good, and I think they're headed in the right direction. So I think the first episode, out of the first 2 episodes, I like the first episode the best. So that one, probably an 8.5 on the first episode and an 8 for the second one. They're just really good show, really good TV, and you know, 2 hours you can get right back into it anyway. So it's like watching a movie, and that's one of the things that they're all doing now. It's like we release 2 episodes at a time to begin with, and I love that, because like just one, I would have been ready to kill myself if I didn't have the second episode to fall back on right away.
Yeah. All right. How about you, Cynic?
Listen, Daredevil and Punisher were 2 of my favorite Marvel properties ever. Those Netflix shows just fucking killed it every single time, and I was excited when we would get new seasons, because I would sit down and basically just binge watch the whole season. I was devastated when they took the rights away from Netflix, because you know, I believe the non-compete was like 2 to 3 years or something like that, where these particular actors couldn't play those characters. So I didn't think there was a shot in hell of us ever getting any of these actors back, let alone most of them. And so I'm super excited about John Barenthal being the Punisher again. I am a huge Charlie Cox fan. I mark out every time I see that guy. It started with Boardwalk Empire, and I was super excited to see him as Daredevil. And I think he really is Matt Murdock. Like, he's the emphasis of that character. So I didn't want to see somebody else pick up the ball and run with that. I think that those 2 castings were damn near perfect, and I didn't want anybody else in those roles. And I kind of hope that's the way it stays for as long as Marvel utilizes these properties. I mean, the episodes were really good. They were really solid. That impact of killing Foggy right off the bat. I mean, we came into the last podcast and I just watched those episodes and I wanted to talk about it so badly because I was so excited about them taking such a big risk. Listen, this is the turning point in Marvel. Like, they turned the ship around. They were into the season and it was fucked up. The cast, the crew, people that have seen parts of the episodes didn't like the tone or the direction of the storyline. They stopped production and did a complete rewrite and started over again. So this is Kevin Feige and everybody at Marvel listening to the people that pay the bills, essentially listening to the fans. So I'm happy with the direction. I'm happy with the tone. I think the third episode is great. I'd give it 8s across the board. And whoever fan suck is on IGN, you can suck my dick, because I think this is a great show.
All right. Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I was a big fan of the original series on Netflix. I think I love the character, love the dynamic between them, between Fisk and Vanessa, between Matt Murdock and Fisk. I think they're just they all really work well together. I like the way they started the show, where it's like it's familiar, and then they take Foggy away, and it hurts. And it's like, yeah, Foggy was annoying, but it's kind of like, if we got Jar Jar Binks in a Star Wars property, we'd all be super excited because whatever, I forget whatever the phrase is, but it's like over time, or like what, absence makes the heart grow fonder, I guess, or something along those lines. But whatever the case is, like yeah, right, probably not, but I'm tired. But no, it was like it was a gut punch, right? And you felt it, and it gave the season momentum. And I think that they're doing a really good job with Fisk. I think the vigilante stuff is a little on the nose. Like, you can trust your viewers a little bit more. We didn't need, like, again, I don't think we needed the White Tiger to make that storyline work. But again, I haven't seen it all, and otherwise, though, it's going really well. I'm really excited. Was totally bought in. Those first 10 minutes, first 15 minutes, fight scenes so far have been great, brutal, and definitely doing things that was a little afraid they wouldn't allow, and Disney wouldn't allow. So yeah, so far I'm really excited. It's been really good, and I'm going to give it 8s across the board as well. All right. Well, as always, great talking to you guys. I will be at the Indie Comics Creator Con this weekend, which is at the Southern Connecticut State University. I got it this time, Egg. Friday, which should be a lot of fun. It'll be our first time tabling at a convention, so I'm excited about that. And then we'll be back next week. Hopefully, definitely to talk about episode 3. And hopefully episode 4 as well, as I'm sure you guys will definitely be caught up, and hopefully I will have gotten those 2 episodes in too. So and then maybe Justin will be on, and we can see if he's watched it. Otherwise, we'll just spoil it all for him. But that's it. So Ig, until next time.
Watch out for the hole that's going to capture you on next Tuesday.